Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you and we're going to be making this fun Halloween card. Today I'm using products from Hello Bluebird and I'm using their new Frightful Little Bits stamp set, which is absolutely adorable with all these cute bats and pumpkins and ghosts, cute little accessories and some sentiments. I'm also going to be using their coordinating dies. For the sentiment, I'm going to be using some stamps from their Spooky Spellers stamp set, and I'm also using their Gallery 1 frame die. I've cut my card base out of purple cardstock, and from the same purple, I've cut the outside of the gallery frame. It's got that nice faux stitching on it. I cut the gallery frame die again, this time out of black cardstock. For my background, I'm using a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock, and this has been cut to 5 by 3 3/4. And then on 110-pound weight white cardstock, I've gone ahead and stamped out my images, and I've used Memento ink. The candy corn is just a single stamp, so I just stamped it out multiple times. I wanted my black cardstock to be glitter cardstock, but I didn't have any in black, but I did have a black Wink of Stella pen, and I thought, well, I can probably add that over top, and sure enough, that gives me that nice little sparkle. So I've placed my die on a piece of scrap paper, and I'm just going to color over the entire piece to add that nice black shimmer. Hopefully that picks up well on camera. I'm just going to cover the complete die. I'm going to keep my piece of scrap paper down because I'm going to do some ink blending. I've pulled over my piece of Bristol Smooth, and I'm actually mixing inks from two different companies, which is totally fine. I'm using Fossilized Amber from the Distress Oxide inks, and from the Harmony line from Spectrum Noir, I'm using their Crushed Velvet Water Reactive die. I've picked up some ink on my blending brush, and I'm going to start on my scrap piece of paper, and I'm going to blend that ink from the edge towards the center. And I'm going to get about halfway down. I want it to be a little bit lighter in the center and a little bit darker towards the edge. I've switched inks and grabbed a different blending brush, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just softly blend that color towards each other, and I want to have an overlap in the center there. And what that's going to do is give me this really pretty kind of orange color. So with two shades of ink, the purple and the yellow, I'm actually going to end up with 3 colors where those overlap. The darker color is going to take a little bit more ink to get that nice saturation. You can just keep layering it on and just pull it down into that yellow. If you want it blended even more, you can go back to the yellow blending brush and pull that back up towards the purple. You'll get that nice, pretty fading between those two colors. And I like to use my heat gun to go ahead and heat set this just to make sure that all the ink is dry. And lastly, to give my background a little bit of added texture, I've got my spray bottle filled with water, and I'm going to spritz the background, and then I'm just going to let it sit and air dry. To color my images, I'm using Spectrum Noir Tri-Blend markers, and today I'm going to be using a combination of their original bullet tip markers with some of the new brush tip markers. I'm currently using the burnt orange brush tip in the lightest shade. If you're not familiar with Tri-Blend markers, they're a marker that have 3 shades of the same color, so it makes it really easy to blend. I've got several videos about these markers on my channel, and I will link those down below. So with the lightest shade of the burnt orange, I filled in all the regular pumpkins. I'm also going to do the little pumpkin that the ghost is holding and the other little pumpkin trick-or-treat container. Moving on to the darker shade, I want to add some shading and shadowing to the pumpkins, and I'm using the brush pen and doing this in soft little strokes around the top and bottom of each pumpkin. I'm going to pull a little bit of color up a little bit higher where those stamped lines are. And I'm going to do that on all of my pumpkins. Next, I'm moving on to the mid-tone of the same marker. I'm going to kind of overlap and overcolor between the light and the dark with the medium. And then I'm going to go back to that lightest shade and I'm going to blend those in together. And that gives me that nice gradation of color. While I still have this marker out, I'm going to use the medium tone and I'm going to color the bottom of each of my candy corns. For the stem of my pumpkins, I'm using dull green. I'm going to use the lightest shade and just a little bit of the dark shade towards the bottom. I'm not going to be using all three. And then I'm just going to blend those together. Sometimes with really small spaces, I find if you use three colors, it just gets a little muddy. For my ghosts and speech bubbles, I wanted just a little hint of gray. So I'm just going to outline the inside of each of the ghosts and the speech bubbles with the lightest shade of ice gray blend. And this is the original bullet tip markers from Tri-Blend. With this same lightest shade, I'm going to completely fill in the bat except for the inside of his ears. And on the bat, I'm going to actually go back and forth between the brush and the bullet tip because the ice gray blend on the brush tip has different colors than the bullet. The bullet has IG 1, 4, and 5, and the brush has 2, 7, and 10. I want this slightly darker shade from the brush marker to give my bat close to black. And as you'll notice, I stamped him upside down because I'm going to be hanging him upside down in the card, and I just thought that would be a little bit easier to color him if I knew he was going to be upside down. Now I'm going into the medium shade of the bullet pen, and again overlap those colors. And then blend everything in together with the lightest shade. So I just wanted to show you that you can easily go back and forth between the brush tip and the bullet tip on these markers. And since a lot of them have different colors, this gives you a wider variety of choices. I wanted to add some little cheeks to my ghost, so I'm using the darkest shade of their pale pink blend in the bullet. Then I wanted to do the same with the little bat. This lighter color will kind of remove a little bit of that gray underneath. So when you place that down, you have that nice little bright pink cheek. I'm also going to give him some little pink inside of his ears. And to finish off, I'm going to color in the center of each of these candy corns with the darkest shade of the light yellow blend in the bullet tip. With all of my images colored in, I'm ready to die cut. This is probably the most time-consuming part, but it's a lot easier than fussy cutting. So I'm just going to use some repositionable tape and tape a die over each of these. I will have to die cut out the candy corn several times individually, and then I'll run these through my die cutting machine. I'm going to set all my images aside for a second and start to put together my card. First thing that I want to do is adhere my ink blended panel onto my card base. Next, I've also got adhesive around the purple frame. I've lined that up along the edges of my card. For the black frame, I'm using a glue pen to apply glue. And I'm going to place that on my card, and it's going to line up right inside that purple frame. So I want my words stamped inside this lower rectangle. So I've gone ahead and carefully placed them where I would like them on the lid of my stamp positioner. I've placed my card inside, and I'm going to use my magnets to hold it in place. And then using my black Memento ink, I'm going to ink that up and stamp it out. The stamp positioning tool will allow me to stamp out the words multiple times so I have a nice crisp black image on my card. So after just 2 stampings, I've got that nice bold black lettering. And now I'm ready to begin assembling my card. I wanted this little bat to be hanging up in the top of the center square. I've put regular adhesive on the back of him. I'm going to place this little ghost in the scene. And one little tip that I have, instead of centering everything in the middle of each of your squares, kind of have some of them going off the side or tucked under. It just gives a little bit of extra movement and interest to your card. On some of my other images, I've placed foam tape. I'm going to put this little ghost in the corner, and then I'm going to put the little pumpkin bucket under so that it looks like he's carrying it. This little stack of pumpkins in this corner. This little cute pumpkin looking at him. This one over next to the sentiment. And using regular adhesive, I'm going to put the little eek coming out from him. This little ghost is saying boo to you, and I'm putting that up there with foam tape. And then I wanted to treat these candy corns sort of like I would like a small sequin or any type of small embellishment like that, and just kind of scatter them around the scene. But I wanted them to have an extra little glossy shine to make them really look like candy corn. So I'm taking my glossy accents and I'm just going to go over each of these candy corn and apply the gloss. And hopefully on camera you can see how that gives them that nice glossy sheen. And here's our finished card. I absolutely love these small little Halloween stamps from Hello Bluebird. They're so much fun to put together in a scene. They'll also make great accents with a lot of their other Halloween stamp sets. And I'm really excited to be starting to make my Halloween cards for the year. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out my channel and subscribe. And I hope you have a spooky day. Bye!